let me go straight into the critical minerals for transition, or for basically energy transition, because transition and what we call just transition has many other elements than just energy per se, as the last presentation tried to hint in different aspects of justice. So I will not go into that because given the time limitation, and just limit myself to the critical minerals and the conceptualization of transition, energy transition, and the limitations in that conceptualization. So let's first start with, most of you probably know, there are 6 or 7 minerals which are very critical for an energy transition. Again, I am not talking about the entire gamut of just transition debate. I will only limit myself to the minerals required for energy transition in this presentation. So what are those? Many of those you know. One very critical material that is being talked about, that is discussed, lot of debate about this, is lithium, because of storage battery requirement. And in this case, we remember debates starting even 10-12 years back, when a lot of people were saying solar, wind, these are intermittent, you cannot have a grid or cannot have major part of the power supply through them. One argument against that is, see, if you look at electricity, and this is only a small part of our total primary energy basket, because electricity in India is around 17-18% maximum. In developed countries, it's not more than 30% of the total primary energy basket. So we are talking about, basically, when transition minerals are talked about, primarily it is electrification and electricity sector, because the so-called transition, which has still not happened, which has just started, energy transition, major part of the action is taking place in the electrification sector. Much less is happening, the transition is happening in non-electrical applications. So let us clearly focus on that. So one of the critical things, if you consider electricity as one of the critical requirements for society today, like food is, like water is, if you talk about the food network, can you imagine the food supply chain without storage? Can you imagine the water supply, entire water supply network without storage? But till now, till the energy transition or renewables came in, we really didn't think about electricity and storage together. So the transient nature, the intermittent nature has forced us to think of electricity also with storage. So that's a necessity. And for storage, lithium ion batteries or lithium polymer batteries or lithium phosphate, iron phosphate batteries, lithium batteries were never designed for mass scale storage. They were designed for portable devices. Because lithium was a mature technology, lithium was placed as a storage for grid scale storage or household storage, and the technology has been developed. So lithium, basically one has to understand, lithium is a critical mineral and lithium has a limited availability. Globally, till last year, the availability of lithium reserves, proven reserves, is around 26 million tons. And out of that, 4 countries, Chile, Australia, Argentina, and probably Bolivia, they have around 75% of the reserves of lithium. So it's very unevenly distributed. So the question of political negotiations to get that very critical mineral, as of now, I will also present an alternative, the scenarios that are evolving in the critical mineral in terms of storage, basically electrical power storage. So lithium is limited. Lithium as of now is one of the most critical mineral for transition, because as we know very well, if you have to go beyond around 20% of the total electricity capacity in the grid to renewables which are intermittent, of course not all renewables are intermittent, geothermal is not intermittent, wave energy is not intermittent, ocean thermal, if it comes at all, will not be intermittent, but those are not as mature, except geothermal in particular sites, those are not as mature as solar and wind. So as of now, the primary supply of renewable energy will be from solar and wind for some, maybe 1 decade or more. So that way, storage will be one critical requirement. But if we look at what is happening over the last decade plus in the electricity storage scenario, there are new materials and new battery technologies which has evolved, which are far better suited for electricity storage. I'm not talking about energy storage. Even on energy storage, thermal energy storage, there are technologies which has evolved, but here we are first talking about the electricity storage. In electricity storage, I don't know, many of you might have heard about the liquid metal battery, the flow batteries, but the liquid metal battery has evolved, and probably this year, the first large-scale installations are coming on grid. And the liquid metal batteries, it was invented by Professor Donald Shadway of MIT, is an emeritus professor in MIT, and it has been given unto a startup, Ambri. So liquid metal batteries do away with limited critical minerals. The philosophy behind innovating the liquid metal batteries was very famous quote that if you want to make dirt cheap batteries, start with dirt. So liquid metal batteries use very simple, very large scale availability materials like calcium, like antimony, sodium. And they are almost endlessly, the cycling is almost endless, unlike lithium batteries, which develop dendrites over a long period of time, which has a limited, like most batteries have a limited lifetime. Liquid metal batteries don't really have a lifetime limitation. They are far cheaper. As of now, because this is a very new technology, if you look at grid scale lithium-ion batteries, which is a very mature technology, the most mature technology of electricity storage, you will find costs in the grid scale battery storage cost about $400+ per kilowatt hour. Right in the beginning, the liquid metal batteries are coming at a cost of $180 to $250, which is just the beginning. So the technology is yet to mature, large scale production is yet to start. So expectation is this will come down much below $100 within the next 3 to 4 years. So in a sense, this is just one alternative. This is not the entire alternative in electricity storage. Flow batteries are there, and then for transportation purposes, flow batteries and liquid metal batteries obviously are not enough. But in transportation, there are other critical minerals which are required. But before going into the actual minerals, let me also present this case. As of now, the entire transition to electrically driven transportation has been envisaged based on private cars. Today, there are something like 1.3 to 1.4 billion cars in the world. And if you have to replace all of these IC engine cars with battery-driven cars, the amount of battery that will be required is enormous. Whatever material you use, the mining, the waste products, processing and waste products, it will be huge. We are not, as of now, we means the dominant powers in this debate, forget about the civil society which raises alternative voices, alternative visions and alternative plans. The dominant industry and government voices today are trying to define this alternative for transportation in terms of private cars, vehicles, that is cars, family-owned cars. And if you think of even 1.2 billion cars which will be using batteries which will last for maybe 9 to 10 years, it will be a huge mining affair. The alternative of electrified mass transportation do not pose this kind of restriction, this kind of constraints, where the amount of material mining required, the critical mineral required comes down by a factor of 10. Rough estimates show the amount of critical minerals that will be required. Even if you use lithium-ion batteries, the material required will be 1/10 that you require for a private car-borne electrical transportation system. So this way, the alternatives of many other materials open up. It's not only lithium, there are in the critical material, you know, for batteries, cobalt, nickel, these are also for batteries. Cobalt, unfortunately, 75% of the cobalt supply comes from Democratic Republic of Congo, where child labor is rampant and exploitation is extreme. So if you shift away from lithium-ion batteries, you dispense with that problem. There are other options which has already come into the market. Last year, in 2023, one of the largest electric vehicle manufacturers, I am not trumpeting the virtues of industry or private industry, but these are realities which are happening in the marketplace, like the first speaker also pointed out. Last year, one of the largest electric car manufacturers in the world, in China, BYD, launched commercially sodium ion battery driven vehicles. And sodium, the availability of sodium is roughly around 6 to 8,000 times that of lithium. Lithium, the entire global reserves is 26 million ton as of now. Sodium is 6 to 8,000 times as much. Sodium is as common as in everywhere, sea, water, everywhere. That's common sodium. So sodium ion batteries today are giving, lithium ion batteries have an advantage of high energy density because the car battery is a little less heavy than if you make it with sodium ion. But already, if lithium ion batteries give around 300 watt-hour per kg, sodium ion batteries of today, which is fairly new, are going to be improved. Of course, lithium has an advantage being the lightest metal, so it will have higher energy densities, whatever you do. But technologies can, to some extent, bridge that gap. Already, sodium ion batteries of today are giving 180 to 190 up to 200 watt-hour per kg, which is not too bad in comparison to 280, 300 watt-hour per kg. So, in the critical mineral space, one is for storage, that is for lithium, nickel, cobalt. So, this can be actually partly lithium will always be there because portable devices, high energy density uses will demand lithium probably for several more years, till better solid state batteries which are already in the development. Again, this year some of the solid state batteries are coming into market, but they will probably take a few more years. They are not as advanced as even liquid metal batteries for grid scale storage. So, this critical mineral restriction for lithium, cobalt and nickel at least is not a stumbling block for transition, energy transition. The other materials that have been pointed out, one are rare earth materials, including neodymium, dysprosium. These are basically for magnets, permanent magnets for both wind turbines and electric car permanent magnets, the motors. So, in this there is a problem, definitely there is a problem. Rare earths are, the name itself clearly says these are rare earth metals, and the entire supply chain is controlled by, basically controlled by one country, China. In fact, lot of critical mineral processing also is controlled by China. So, that's definitely a constraint both in supply and political terms throughout the world. Obviously, it's clear, but there as of now, permanent magnets replacing rare earth, we have not found out a really large scale viable material. So, that critical material gap is still there, and it will be there for the foreseeable future unless some new innovation or invention comes where better magnets without using rare earths or some large scale discovery of rare earth deposits happens, which is in the future iffy, which is iffy, big if. So, these are called critical minerals. How much time? Okay. So, the other two critical minerals that are used, basically one is for the grids, you know, copper, grids, motors, everything, copper, and partly silver because of large scale solar deployment. So, both copper and silver are used as well as in the grid copper, silver is used also in the solar panels. And solar and wind being the, as of now, the primary, and as of now means as of now and in the next couple of decades, being seen as the primary, so emerging source of electricity, and ultimately partly through electrification of different sectors which are not yet electrified, and partly through non-electrical application. There I will also like to highlight this aspect. Through this, solar and wind will be dominating our future non-fossil energy sources. But here one important thing which is discussed but not highlighted often is that we are basically targeting almost all our effort into electrification of our energy supply systems. Like I pointed out yesterday also in one of the sessions, there are several applications where if you try to electrify that application, the efficiency of use comes down drastically. Like you see, same example, industrial heating. If you generate solar energy at even today's commercial 20% or 22% bifacial monopark panels, 22% efficiency, conversion of solar energy to electricity. If you take it through a grid by a loss of 15% at least. India has higher, I think 18 to 20% losses, AT&C losses, and then use it for heating, you are effectively using 12, 13, 14% of the incident solar energy. The solar thermal application could have been far more efficient, but enough research, enough effort in developing that has not been given. And if you go through some of the, if you look at industrial energy requirement, one is motive power, which is basically supplied by electricity. The second is industrial heating, which is a huge amount of energy. And in industrial heating, there are different grades of heat that is required. For ferrous metallurgy, you need very high temperature heat. For non-ferrous metallurgy, you need less than 1000 degrees Celsius. For a lot of course, plastics is another contentious area, but plastics being one of the massive industrial area, you need heating up to maximum of 300 degrees Celsius. And solar heating, direct solar heating, without going to the electricity route, is very, very suitable up to non-ferrous application, non-ferrous industrial heating applications of around 1000 degrees Celsius or so. And which can be, if a little bit of application is given there, which can be much more efficient in the application, a far higher part of the incident solar insolation, incident solar energy we can use for actual work, and it might actually result in less capital investment. Today, the capital investment, because we are talking about the energy financing conference, the capital investment in each of these critical minerals is extremely limited. The capital investment as of the last 3-4 years average on critical minerals is around 45 to 60 billion dollars globally. Whereas the IEA estimate, International Energy Agency estimate, is that for an energy transition, you need at least $1 to $2 trillion per year in the entire energy sector. So in the critical minerals, the energy investment is very, very little. So if we really want some of these critical minerals to come into play in a much better way and much faster than is now possible, we'll have to increase the investment in the critical minerals area also. But again, let me re-emphasize this, that whenever we talk about critical minerals, we are most of the time constrained by some of the given conceptualization of what is that alternative future that we are coming. Is it every family will have an electric car, or society will transition to a lower energy consumption society, more equitable, more equitably distributed, more accessible? Because whatever you do, economy dictates everyone or every family cannot have an electric vehicle or even a vehicle. It's very clear. It's not a question of critical mineral, it's a question of the ecological footprint that we have on the earth, which is, as we know very well, 1.8 times the global 12.92 global hectares that is available today. We are already at 1.8 times. So if we go for every family will have a car, and equity dictates that if you say an electric car is a just solution, then every family justifiably has an option if economy permits, if their economic capacity permits. So do we want an alternative future where this kind of conceptualization is accepted, or do we go into an alternative where the minerals that serve the societal purpose, that change is much lower energy consumption, much more equitably distributed energy consumption society, and in that society the components of electricity, industrial heating, transportation, agriculture, everything. So thank you very much.